97% of all New Year's resolutions are never kept. So what's wrong with us? Why can't we just make up our mind to do something? And like Nike says, just do it. For years, I was a broken record. I'd wake up on New Year's Day and say, okay, I'm going to lose this extra weight from the holidays, going to the gym 4 days a week, and I'm going to eat healthy foods. But I've learned now that my subconscious mind says, no, I have a program for that. We don't like to exercise. So Lynn's going to hit that snooze button and be lazy, and I'm not going to give up cupcakes. No way. Sound familiar? When we learned about hypnosis, the answer became clear. No permanent change in behavior takes place without touching the subconscious. And today, you all have a rare opportunity to speak personally to Tom Nicoli, foremost expert on weight loss with hypnosis, as he explains his depth program for weight loss. This is a great opportunity to learn how you can take the weight off and keep it off while improving your overall physical and emotional health. And besides being a dynamic speaker, seminar leader, and lecturer, he's the author of Thinking Thin, The Truth About Weight Loss. And the success of his work has been covered by national radio shows, newspapers, publications, such as Shake Magazine. He's been featured on NBC News, Dateline, NBC, Talk of the Town, The Jordan Rich Show, and more.
Hi, Lynn. It's really a pleasure to be here and share what I can. There was a point in time where I was struggling like most people, and I was doing full mouth reconstruction dental technology. I was a dental technician working in the lab, making the teeth that dentists put in your mouth, and a working musician. But I had also studied hypnosis for, at that point, maybe 7 years. I had read a marketing book, and it gave a visualization process, a mind technique, which I learned was hypnosis, and it really affected my life and the people that I was managing. We were able to really reduce stresses and up production, and it was very cool. Then I decided to look into this as a career, and I got certified, and 1 month later I opened an office, which actually was a storage closet. I had been bankrupt. I had nothing. I literally had nothing. And the room was 8 feet by 8 feet, and Dateline NBC actually filmed in that office. And I went from there to where I am now, and it was all a matter of just consistency, and like anyone knows, putting things in action, learning more, and, getting some blessings along the way. And my career had taken off to the point where I'm fortunate and blessed enough to have worked with so many people that I've been able to tweak what I do and instill these different programs and help so many thousands of people around the world. So simply, it was somebody who kind of pursued this career. I felt that it resonated with me when I was introduced to it. And as they say, there are some things that you find that you were meant to do, and I believe this is something I was meant to do. And 13 years later, here I am, seeming like it's still week one. Lynn, as you and Jim know, and many other people understand, but so many don't, and I joke with my clients when they come in and they get frustrated and say, I haven't lost any weight yet, and I joke and say, well, I forgot my chainsaw. Hypnosis is not what physiologically releases fat from the body, which is what weight loss really is. We help change the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors associated to anything people are doing. So once the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors shift and change, then the body will do what it does. So it's a two-step process, really, when it comes to hypnosis and what we call weight loss. When I had worked with Mark Merlis, the pastry chef, I had worked with him, as we'll probably get into later, the process I use and the approach I use. But the beauty was, with all 6 different approaches, and there was somebody who ran a marathon who never exercised or ran before, Atkins, Jenny Craig, Slim Fast, and hypnosis. And Mark was the only one who did not struggle, was not frustrated. It seemed, and we hear that word a lot, it just seems easy. And it was effortless, because that which drives behavior that our ego is fighting against, it doesn't use force or pressure, but it wins. It's the subconscious. But once the subconscious is on board, even if you want to do what you used to do, it seems like you just don't want to. So the beauty is that the process we use is the effective, safe, natural, and expedient process to change that assists somebody to do what they want to do in ways that they're not sure, how or why then they're not able to do what it is they want to do. They feel stuck and limited behind this invisible wall which is basically thought and emotion.
That's really interesting, especially the part about the ego not fighting against us. And that's, we use a lot of times in what we call pattern, we talk about without effort, struggle, or strain. And that's what hypnosis does. It does push that ego, maybe not out of the way, but I guess into sync, so that we're all parts of us are on the same page doing the same thing.
Well, when I was asked to go on what I call the NGH tour and go out and explain what I do to the people in our profession, I did what I have learned to do in order to get answers. It was written a long time ago, ask and you'll receive, the answers are within. Mm-hmm. So I sat out in my sunroom and I was looking up at the stars through the skylight, and I just asked, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to put everything I do together? And the word depth showed up in my mind, and I kind of chuckled and said, okay, so what's that mean? And it just seemed to flow. It all came. And it stands for denial, emotional pain, truth, and honesty. So here we have this acronym that stands for pretty much everything that goes on in the work I do with people. In order to find out the why, nobody comes to me because of what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. But why do they do it, or why do they not do what they should do? The way I see it, folks, is that we have emotional pain. So it works from the inside out. The EP comes first, the emotional pain, but in parentheses, we also have emotional voids. The subconscious mind, being your survival mind, the primal hard drive program, is survival. So every time we have some feeling that's uncomfortable, we put it under pain. There's either pain or pleasure. That's it. So all these feelings are registered under pain. Now, the mind's job is to protect us from pain, so it will give us behaviors that will distract us or / smother the pain. At the same time, though, I have found, especially in eating, and people who eat big, what we call comfort foods, they're not comfortable at all. They make us fat and uncomfortable, and they lower our self-esteem, and it goes on and on and on. But there's an emptiness, an emotional void, along with the emotional pain. So we're looking to fill this emptiness that food will never fill. We can never be satisfied emotionally through eating. So people start recognizing their issue. They really get honest about it, and they try to make a change, or they don't, and they stay stuck in the denial, which is rationalizing and justifying the behavior. But they try to make a change with the ego, with force, but that's like slamming commands off your keyboard, and the computer just says, boop, error, because the hard drive has programs that aren't compatible with that command. So then they start justifying and rationalizing their behaviors again, and they stay stuck. So my job is to first get them into the truth and honesty behind everything, and it's very common that they tap into those painful emotions and the tears start to flow. But it's once we open that door to the emotions, the feelings that are going on, then we can get to the why. So that's what the depth stands for: denial, emotional pain, truth, and honesty. And it gets much more involved and intense, as you can imagine, but that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you. That makes it really clear. And we notice that people coming in to us also experience a measure of shame and anger at themselves for not being able to change. And that's difficult too, and your process deals with all of that.
We can look further into the depth model, and it includes so much. Lynn had mentioned how clients come in, and of course, when people are going through what seems like a positive path to some goal to achieve or accomplish something, there's also frustration involved, there's challenge, and people don't deal with it correctly, really. Most times what they're doing is compounding their problems by now adding on top of it frustration and disappointment, and then they lower their confidence and self-esteem, and then anger sets in, and then we have a whole another bunch of stuff to deal with. But in the model, what's important is that we have to understand that food is something we must have. It's not a do or don't, like smoking or drinking or drugs or whatever it could be, or some behavior you can just let go of. And there's another problem to this. Mass hypnosis is advertising. I remember fasting for 10 days once. I was using supplements and a vegetable drink one day and a fruit drink the next, but it was a fasting situation. And I became very well aware of how we are bombarded by food messages. You cannot escape it. There's no way to get around it. On top of that, it's easier to give up something that society frowns upon, like drugs or drinking or cigarettes. But food is condoned. It's 24 hours a day. It's available. Sometimes it's free. And it's also a way that people come to connect. So there's a very, very complex situation here, and that's why what people don't understand is, quote-unquote, weight loss clients are the most complex to deal with. Now, the terms that I take away, when we begin, it's important to restructure the conscious approach, also why we work at the subconscious level. And I have people start reframing words, and I say to them, if you ever lost your mind, or if you lost your keys, or you lose your way home, your mind is conditioned to finding what you lose. So we change weight loss to fat release, releasing fat. We don't care how much we weigh. I joke with women, and I say, if you stepped on a scale and it said 300 pounds and you were in a size 6, would you care? And they're like, no. Good. So stop weighing yourself. Your clothes are your gauge as the adult. Also, you are not to diet. Dieting is the dumbest thing a human ever did. There's not a living thing that diets in the way we understand what a diet is these days. You eat when you're hungry, you stop when the hunger signal's gone, and you choose the proper food, and that's another issue. I reframe the word food, folks. People think they're eating food, but they're eating edible manufactured products. Food has been around since the beginning of time, and the earth has provided it. And no matter what feast, what banquet you look at hundreds and hundreds of years ago, either a farmer or a hunter had to supply the food. That's it. So since the 50s, since TV dinners, I saw this report on PBS where over 150,000 edible products have been manufactured. A Dorito is a manufactured product. And all the things that people are eating that's packaged with a label and the ingredients that are there, that's manufactured, that's produced. So we need to start getting people not to be health nuts because, quite frankly, if you want to eat cake and pizza and pasta, okay, but not all the time, not as the steady diet. Now, that's using in the right term. Whatever you consume during the day is your daily diet. So people need to make healthier choices and have what is commonly known as the 80-20 rule, because we don't want to have rebellion and spite and feel like we're deprived. You can choose whatever you want. That's the beauty. It's just that when you do this work, you won't feel so drawn to eating the fat and the grease and the processed sugars and preservatives and additives that's killing the body. Yeah?
Can you explain to listeners what the 80 rule is, the 80-20 rule?
Well, I have many, many projects in my life, and one of the projects that I have, and I've interviewed people from all areas of self-development around the world, and every physical fitness expert I've ever interviewed all agrees the 80-20 rule is 80% of the time you do what's right, 20% of the time go ahead and have your pizza or ice cream or something like that. And maybe 80% of the time you're physically active and now you see I said physically active, I didn't say exercise. Because the word exercise is another word we have to change. But 20% of the time maybe you just chill out and you take a day off. So the 80-20 rule creates positive balance. So exercise. Now people say that means workout, and they have that pained look when you mention that. As one of the comedians I heard said once, I lifted weights one time, and they were heavy. I put them down. But imagine when we're children, running, playing, sweating, jumping, and we get called in for dinner or something, and we're panting, and we want to play one more game. An adult would ask you if you're trying to kill them. They don't want to do this, but the children are having fun. Now, we used to do this. So we need to bring back the childlike behavior that's within us and to go play. But a lot of people don't play. I know a woman who I worked with who was 62 years old, and she felt like a fool, quote-unquote, a fool, if she was to go ride bikes with her kids. Now, imagine that. So she felt foolish to be 62 and ride a bike. Now, that means we have to deal with the insecurity of the individual because they're concerned about what other people think and say and what other opinions are that they're hearing and comments. So there's another aspect of the work, you see? So confidence and self-esteem building, forgiveness, letting go of the past, present moment focus, and more components involved in this process in my depth model allow the person to now start to release what's in their way, to build and reinforce what's already in them. Because, Jim and Lynn, you guys know from practicing what we do, and other people listening, we were born with all the brilliance, all the knowledge, all the confidence, all the self-esteem, the abilities, the passions, everything we ever needed in order to find out who we really are and live a happy life. I believe that nobody needs to find anything new. No one needs to find what they're missing. It's everything that's been layered on top of our brilliance at the core that we need to peel away in order to access who we really are once again. And I believe that's where the bulk of our work is during this model that I use. And by the way, the depth model I use with all clients, no matter what they come in for.
I can see why. This would apply to everything in their lives. And it's fun for us to listen to you describe what you're doing, because we haven't been doing this as long as you have, and it affirms a lot of what we do, because I know we talk to our clients about how these things are still within them. We may have them visualize a time that they were happy and successful and confident, and remember all of these qualities that are within them that they've forgotten. You mentioned peeling away what's just layered up on top of it, and that applies to everybody. That is so powerful.
Exactly.
And PMF was exactly the next thing I was going to ask you about. I think they'd really love to hear about PMF, and I use this all of the time. I know Jim does. It's very, very helpful for people. I love your car analogy that you could describe, so that people learn how to just stay on track, just staying on the road. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I joke with people, and I actually, most of the things that I come up with, I'm either led to or come to me. I don't create them. On paper, I'm supposed to be smart, but I'm not as smart as it appears. And one time, a gentleman, Kevin Hogan, who is a friend of mine, and he's in this profession, and he and I were walking down the hallway at a conference, and this woman stopped, and she said, "Oh, no, not the two of you together." And we looked at each other like, what the heck does that mean? And she said, "One of you is overpowering enough, but two of you together." And she said, "How the heck do you guys do what you do and get it all done?" And Kevin had just completed his 12th book, the Science of Influence, or Science of Persuasion, I believe it was. So he took my watch, he took his watch, and he gave them to her, and he said, "Do they look like yours? They have the same amount of numbers?" And he's joking with her, but he's making a point. And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I don't know. We all have the same amount of time all over the world, and everyone that's accomplishing whatever they accomplish is doing it in the same amount of time." So what it comes down to is that we watched time, and time just ticks by while we're thinking about what used to be, or thinking about what will be, or what we should do, or what we shouldn't do, and it's going by. So we need to have present moment focus. We hear about this a lot, being in the moment. And I learned when I started this years and years ago that when I was focused on what I was doing, I got things done quicker and more effectively and more calmly. So it's a practice, but we need to get people into being in the moment, to be focused on what's going on now. Now, you mentioned the car metaphor I use, and I actually saw Jack Canfield use this as well. So you're driving at night, and up around here in southern New Hampshire, it can be pretty dark at night. There aren't street lights like in the city that I grew up in. So you're driving, and behind you it's pitch black. If you turn your headlights on, you cannot see. But when your headlights are on, you feel comfortable, and you just focus on the distance you can see ahead of you, which is pretty much in your present moment focus. And you will get to where you're going. As long as you stay focused on where you are, you stay on the road, and you drive the speed you need to, you will get to where you're going. Now, if it was daylight and you were really so, I won't say anxious, but excited to get where you're going, you might be looking ahead and see how far you can look when all of a sudden something ran in front of you and you had an accident. So we need to just remember to stay focused in the moment, and it doesn't matter what's happened up until now. It's over. That's the beauty. And it doesn't matter what may happen, because whatever we do right now is what's going to create the future. So if you spend the time focusing on what might happen, you'll miss what you could do now to affect your future in a better way, and that's why present moment focus is a part of the program. One of the components that's very important is forgiveness. Now, a lot of people don't understand forgiveness and how it works and why it's important, but you know, there's a saying, you will not do anything good for someone you don't like. Now, the biggest problem, and we hear this phrase, people beat up on themselves, their own worst enemy. We treat ourselves, well, not we, because I want to include myself in that. People treat themselves worse than they treat other people. It's absolutely amazing. So what I do is I first remind people that forgiveness has nothing to do with anyone else. So we forgive others because it seems to be easier. It just seems this way to me in practice and the experience I have. And when I say experience, just so people understand, I've worked with 5-year-olds and people up to 91. And I've worked with every type of person you could possibly imagine, whether it's the single mom with 3 kids and 2 jobs and the local truck driver and policeman, or people at levels that you would know their name. So we're all basically the same, though we're very unique. So we have people start forgiving others, and I say to them, now let's say someone really did something that's horrible. I mean, really horrible. But forgiveness is releasing yourself. It has nothing to do with the other person. You know, staying angry at someone, like they say, is like you taking poison and hoping somebody else dies. So I say to them, all right, I want you to forgive me. I want you to say, Tom, I know you said horrible things to me, and I know you really didn't mean it, so I forgive you. And they do, and I say, yeah, I really don't care. So I show them that it doesn't matter, because I could care less if they forgive me or not. It's to actually let them to stop thinking about it, stop feeling it, and to move on. So that's the first part. Now I get them into themselves, and I find out what it is that they feel bad about, why they don't like themselves, why they're disappointed, why they're still angry at themselves. And we work at the forgiveness factor on a personal level. And a lot of times what I'll do is have them imagine and see themselves sitting next to them, or a smaller version of them, or a younger version, when something maybe happened, when they did something they actually still can't get past. See, I don't say get over it, but you move past it. And I say to them, now, if that was someone else, and they were a decent person, and they didn't mean any ill intent, they didn't have any harm as far as their intentions and their actions, would you say, come on, look, it's okay, you're not a bad guy, you're not a bad girl, just it's okay, it's all right? They say, of course I would. So we need to get them to associate to themselves in this way. And like Einstein said, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. So I'm having them just change the way they look at something, which we sum up in the word perception. And perception creates your reality. If you perceive the earth is flat, it is. So they're perceiving themselves through these experiences and these registered reactions and emotions. And once we change the perception, it's almost like people go, oh, like aha, that aha moment, that light bulb goes off. And they just see it a little differently. And when you do, your emotional response changes as well. I also use different releasing techniques, whether it's through imagery or through regression or maybe just through what we call the squash technique, and it's an NLP technique that people can actually see online for free, the squash technique. And there are many different ways.
What's that, Tom?
Pardon, Jim?
Well, what's the squash technique?
Well, the squash technique simply is, people say there's a part of me that knows better and a part of me that doesn't. A part of me wants to and a part of me can't. So there's the internal conflict. Now, the simple version to sum it up really easily and quickly with the time we have is you just have them imagine the part that doesn't want to, or the part that does want to. In this part, you see the shape, the size, the color, all the senses that can be applied, the scent, the sound, and it wants something good for you. It wants you to be safe, happy, comfortable, secure, and all the good things. Then you see the other part. Now, it has a shape, a size, a color, a texture, etc. And even though it's not what you want, it's done a good job. Or, by the way, you thank the first part, and you thank this part as well, because it really has done a good job no matter what. It's done it. It's kept you, stuck. And it probably thought it was keeping you safe. And a lot of times the mind does. It could be a negative behavior, but it thinks it's doing something good for you, or it wouldn't do it. So now you see both parts in each side, but your focus as their eyes are closed and they're in a hypnotic state, straight ahead, and the two parts turn and face each other and negotiate their differences and come together and form a new part. And the new part is the combination of these energies that are separate, but they come together to join, let's say join together, to bring all of those energies together to end the conflict and feel more empowered in a more positive direction.
Uh-huh.
We really wanted to talk about forgiveness for self and others because we actually pirated some of your wording that we use quite often. Don't let your past hold your future hostage. And
right.
People need to understand that forgiveness is for them more than anything else.
That's right. It's to set you free.
Right.
And,
right.
And I say, when you have a universal view of life, it isn't about you need to get revenge on someone else. I just say things like, well, God will get you. It all comes out in the wash. It may not, it's just like with receiving. I may do something good for you, but that doesn't mean you have to do something good for me in reciprocity. Something good will be done for me through something else or someone else. So it's knowing that the person who did wrong, well, they have to deal with that. Their energy's messed up, and they'll have consequences. And there's no pleasure in seeing somebody get harmed. I don't, some people think there is, but truly at a deep subconscious spiritual level, there's really no pleasure in seeing any kind of harm done. So I just hope that all people finally get past their issues and stop being the way they are if it's negative. And I just know that I don't have the time or the energy or the space in my mind or my heart to harbor this stuff. So I just move forward and just wish you the best. January 4th, that just passed, 2012, was the 8th annual World Hypnotism Day. It was an idea I had, and I thought about the Great American Smokeout. And I had read somebody post, the organizations we belong to are supportive, but you would think they'd get your clients. And I kind of, it got under my skin a little. And I thought, how dare you even think like that? That is so wrong, so limiting. So I started saying, well, what if we all got together and stopped relying on the organizations we belong to and got responsible? Because this is how I grew up. You made things happen. Why don't we get together as a force? And January 4th was actually the third episode of that 10-month Dateline Ultimate Weight Loss Challenge. And at first I thought, well, this stinks because it got bumped because of something Michael Jackson was being covered for at the time. And this was back in 2004, I believe. And then all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, that's a blessing in disguise because it's right after New Year resolution time and during the time people are trying to make change. Now, worldhypnotismday.com, the general public can opt in with their first name and email address, and I'm the only person that sees the email list, so everyone can feel comfortable knowing they're never going to get marketed to or their name's not going to be sold. And there are 4 free audio downloads. They get these weight loss, stop smoking, sleep better. These are hypnosis samples of what it's like to sit down, be guided through a hypnosis audio to start creating behavior change as a sample to see what it's like to remove the myths and misconceptions about this timeless and honorable profession, and for people to then realize, well, they can find a practitioner in their local area. We also will send them research facts. Facilities all over the world, institutions, medical institutions, mental health practices, universities from Harvard to Baylor to Sweden and Russia. There are all kinds of deep research facts that we'll send in email and different reports that people will get in their email along with those free audios. So here we are basically putting our money where our mouth is and not saying we just want to always sell our services to people, but we truly want to help. So this is all free. And people around the world, there are now people in 22 countries have participating, holding low-cost or no-cost events to promote hypnotism to the general public and to educate them of the truths and benefits. And there are 11 countries where I have hypnotism professionals as the leads in that country all over the world. So it's really starting to spread, and we're finding that the television coverage, the newspaper coverage, the print media are all, covering us. The Boston Herald and the Boston Phoenix had called me to interview me about it this past year, and we're really getting the word out. So World Hypnotism Day is a way to promote the truths and benefits to people, and they can get those free resources by just going to worldhypnotismday.com.
Right. And one thing they should know is that even though the actual day and a lot of special events is January 4th, that they can go there anytime.
All year long.
Any day of the year, right, all year long, and get special information. And it's a wonderful way of letting people know exactly what it is.
And I want to remind people that weight loss hypnosis is all about hypnosis helping you changing the way you think, feel, and behave, which will let your body lead to what your body will do. And the one thing I want to leave with everyone is to remember that the thought is more overwhelming than the task. That which we need to do, the action we need to take, is always easy once we do it. Once we stop procrastinating, we even ask ourselves, well, why didn't I just do it? It's the thought. And that's what we call making mountains out of molehills. You have a feeling, you have a thought, and you keep focusing on it, and what you focus on expands, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you shut down. So it's being aware of that, taking action quicker, and if you can't, then seek the professional services of somebody like Lynn or Jim and myself and anyone else that's out there, and start changing the thoughts through this natural and safe process with wonderful side effects that will even improve your general attitude and let you sleep better and all kinds of good things.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much for letting me be here.